the University of Edinburgh is an important actor in the OER field because they are investing in figures like Melissa, who are institutionally within the university, have the role to push for open education and for OER, which is not common in European universities as far as I know. So she is a living example, sort of how a university could and maybe should invest in positions to foster institutionally the use of open educational practices.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's my, can you hear me? Yep. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. It's lovely to be here. That's a great introduction because I'm slightly intimidated by all of you working in such a variety of environments, tackling such a range of challenges, and I feel actually humbled. I don't think that what we're doing at Edinburgh is particularly amazing, but what I can do is speak from just one institution's position, and perhaps that's useful for making the case when you go back to your own institution. So I'm assistant principal for online learning, but I'm also director of learning, teaching, and web services in the university. And it means that my job is in central IT departments. I'm director of IT and I work for the CIO. And that kind of situates what I'm talking about. Edinburgh has taken the position that OER is a digital initiative, that it's about moving digital materials around, digital education materials, and attaching those licenses, the Creative Commons licenses that you've learned about this morning. The fact that those licenses are human readable, lawyer readable, and machine readable. So we know that if we put the licenses on our material, as the material moves around our systems, the license stays connected with the material. And so we see this as a digital infrastructure investment around open educational resources in the institution. So the budget and the investment is coming from the IT and library budget. So I don't know if that helps you think about things you might do in your own institution. So University of Edinburgh is an ancient institution. Sometimes we get into arguments with other universities about who is older. It's the 6th oldest of the English-speaking universities. So there was Oxford and Cambridge, and then there was 4 in Scotland. Edinburgh was the first of the ancient Scottish institutions to be founded not by the church. So there's no religious history to University of Edinburgh. For the other British universities, the older ones, they were all founded by monks in the church. Edinburgh is the first of the civic universities, so it was founded in the city for the people of the city. And this is important because it means that in our mission and our original statements, it talks about being open to all. And so part of what our position as a university is, and as an enlightened institution, is to think about how we make an impact and share our materials. But that said, you can see there's a set in stone, there's a book right at the center of the crest, there's a castle, there's a thistle, very located in Scotland, very much a place and a name that has a strong brand and reputation. It is, Scotland is a northern country. I've discussed this with some of you. The city is very old and it's very cold, and the way we try to attract visitors to come to the very cold places is to have festivals and fireworks, and so you're very welcome to visit, but I would recommend in the summer during the Edinburgh festivals if you are going to come. Edinburgh University is a research-led institution. We have the kind of buildings that you might expect in an old institution. It looks like this, and the students sit around on the grass on the one day that it's not raining. we all come out with our cameras and take pictures. We have very beautiful venues. We have 35,000 students on campus. So we have all the facilities you would expect for those. We have ancient collections. We have beautiful students. We teach the full range, so we have a big art college. So our students are being creative, solving problems. We teach the full range of subjects. We also have a number of farms. We are quite into veterinary science, and I'll come back to why that's relevant for open education. But we have 11 farms. We're very keen on sheep. We invented this sheep. This sheep is the reason why all sheep now look the same. So this is Dolly, the cloned sheep. She's from Scotland. She wears wool to keep warm. And the reason I mention the animals is that we have 45 MOOCs, and I sometimes refer to them as a stable of MOOCs because they've been born over a number of years. You have to look after them, they've grown, but also a lot of them are about animals. So there's the How to Be a Vet MOOC that I have an Edinburgh MOOC alumna in the room over here who took There was the How to Be a Veterinarian, How to Be a Vet. There's also one of our early ones was about looking after your horse, equine nutrition, how to fix your horse. We have also MOOCs about looking after chickens. We have one recently which is cats and dogs on the internet, which is just all full of videos of cats doing cute things on the internet. Now, this all sounds like fun, except that actually what we're doing with our MOOCs is we have a lot of research going on in our animal science and agricultural science parts of the university. And they see the MOOCs as a way of getting the latest in their research out to as many people as possible by making it open and quick and free. So the university invests in the MOOCs because this is a mechanism for translating research, translational research from bench to barnyard for the biggest impact to the people who need to know as quickly as possible. That's how we've ended up with such a selection of MOOCs. They all keep going, and every year we add more, so it's becoming a larger and larger collection. There's been some discussion already about whether MOOCs are OER. We try as much as possible to make sure that the content of our MOOCs is licensed as OER. Sometimes that's not always clear once it's gone up into the MOOC platform, but that's partly because Coursera, FutureLearn, and edX, which are the platforms we're on, don't make it particularly easy to show that license, but we make sure that the content as we make it, all the born digital content, is as much as is licensed as openly as we can. So Daniel showed the different licenses, and we'll always try to go for CC BY. Sometimes the content means it has to be slightly more restricted, but we understand the license on all of the materials, and the reason for that is because the material belongs to University of Edinburgh and we move it around. So with the MOOCs, this is our current sort of set of data. We've had more than 2 million people sign up. 150,000 have completed the course and bought certificates. We have a lot of reach. So what I was saying about we license the material as OER. So we have 130 academic staff and 128 teaching assistants across 19 of our academic schools. And the reason I mention that is because those are all people who around the institution have been engaged in the process of thinking about what the licensing on their educational material is. So in terms of reach across an institution when you're investing in faculty development or getting people involved, they thought they were getting involved, having a great time doing MOOCs and disseminating their research, but at the same time, when we were creating the material with them, we were talking about licensing and how much they would like the material to be openly licensed so that it can be reused by other teachers. So it's a privileged position, I think, to be in a Western, Northern, ancient institution where there is a lot of knowledge and a lot of material. And the more openly we can license that for other teachers to use in their context and in situ. And so we have tended to license things in quite small chunks in the hope that it will be reusable by other people. So rather than the whole MOOC, there might be just little bits that people want to take. So particular bits about the chickens, particular bits about the horses, and particular bits of cats and dogs that might be relevant to teaching in other places. And so we license it all. And that investment, partly, that we've made in doing MOOCs is also an investment in faculty development for OER. The other advantage, of course, of licensing the stuff openly is that people can make translations of it. So although we don't in Edinburgh make multiple language translations, because it's licensed openly, other people can. And we have several MOOCs that are based on our MOOCs that have been translated into other languages and are now running, delivered by other partners, but reusing our material. So the university's ambition, I said we had 35,000 students on site. Over the next few years, we're aiming to significantly increase our online learning students, and this is partly because of the challenge to the UK of Brexit. We don't know what's going to happen with visas. It's hard enough to get a visa for the UK anyway. It could get a lot worse, and we would still want people to be able to study at Edinburgh, but from a distance. So we are expecting to get up to, we have about 2,500 distance learning full-time master's students now. So 2,500 distance students at the moment. We're planning to seriously ramp that up to 10,000 students. And we have 50 MOOCs, and we have 65 postgraduate online learning master's courses at the moment. So we have a lot of online courses. Each of them only have small groups on them, but we're going to seriously ramp that up. We also put our content onto a lot of different platforms. So edX, FutureLearn, Coursera, YouTube, iTunes U, we have Blackboard, we have Moodle, we use Kaltura, we have Echo 360 for lecture recording, and we do a lot of work with Wikimedia. So the reason that it is of use, of value to the institution to think about open educational resources and licensing is that the same license that makes it possible for other people to reuse our stuff also makes it possible for us to reuse our stuff on different platforms. So we can be sure if we license it properly, we understand the license when we make it, that we can move our content from one platform to another. We can reuse it for undergraduate, postgraduate, for MOOCs. We can put it up onto all of those different platforms. If we were having to go back to the original lecturer or think about the third-party rights in things every time we moved it from one platform to another or from one collection to another, the cost and the time of doing that makes it much harder to automate or to be consistent or to do any of this kind of work at scale. So for Edinburgh University, it's an investment in understanding our digital learning materials. And so the open educational licenses get attached right at the beginning, and it moves around the institution to however we want to use it. And that means that we can enable colleagues who would like to put their material on different platforms. We can say, yes, you can put it there. We don't have to look again at the license on the platform and figure out whether our material fits with that license. Often the platforms are cloud hosted, their data is in another country, so you're suddenly thinking about where is your stuff being hosted and what kind of access rights are you giving. So the more open you can license the material, the more cool you are with the idea that it moves around, the easier it is to do business. So for us, the open licensing makes a clear distinction between resources that can be used for free, for you all, and those that we're free to do with what we will. So you're free to do with them what you will, but also that the institution is free to do with what we will. So all of the material that's made within the university, as much as possible, we license it as OER, and that allows us to use it and reuse it and update it and make changes to it and put it into different formats and move it into different repositories and keep it in different ways. Now, in order to support colleagues, academic colleagues, in engaging with thinking about open educational resources, we decided to establish a vision for open educational resources at the institution. When we started to do this, a lot of the questions about quality and who would be allowed and who would check and where would it come from and what kind of things came up. So what worked at Edinburgh was to establish 3 strands of the vision. And the aim with this is that any colleagues should be able to identify one of these strands as the way that they are making their materials available. So the idea is that we had for the common good, which is an idea that any of your day-to-day teaching material that you want to license openly can just be put out there as you teach it at Edinburgh. The handouts, the PowerPoint slides, whatever it is you use for your teaching on campus, you can share for the common good. Then people were concerned that we should have stuff that was the best stuff, that was really high quality production, that Edinburgh should be represented by only really high quality production material. So we made a strand called Edinburgh at its best, and that's where we release a lot of the MOOC material, where we're investing money, where we've got some of the stuff that we consider to be, we're very proud of, and we want to push as Edinburgh as Edinburgh at its best. But that doesn't mean that the stuff that's going out under the strand common good is any less valuable. It's just that we're showcasing on Edinburgh at its best and releasing much more for the common good. And the third one is Edinburgh's treasures. And this is partly because as a research institution with a lot of museums and libraries, we actually have in Edinburgh some collections of stuff that is it's unique and it's only in Edinburgh. So to actually look at these collections and think about what can be digitized and made openly available under open licenses for other people to use seems like something that the university should be doing rather than just holding it all in a closed way. So you shouldn't actually have to come and physically come to the city of Edinburgh to get access to our collections. So we're looking at what in our collections can be digitized and released under the strand Edinburgh's Treasures. And that gets buy-in from the library, and it also reassures colleagues that this activity is part of a research-led understanding of what we are as a research institution. And it seems to help to allay concerns that we are moving into some kind of other business in open education that isn't Edinburgh's history. This all links right back to the university's history. So the 3 strands build on the history of the university, what we're for, the understanding that we have excellent education and research collections that other people may enjoy having access to, and also those traditions of the Enlightenment, being open, and the civic mission for the city and Scotland, and now, of course, with digital, it can go much widely around the world. As I said, those are the 3 strands: the common good, Edinburgh at its best, and Edinburgh's treasures. And so sometimes people say, so where do you put the stuff? Is it all in a repository? So we have a website that links it all together. This is the open.ed website. We're very lucky to have the bit of the internet that's called .ed, because it sounds a bit like education, but is also Edinburgh. But this is not a repository. This is a website that's taking feeds from various things. So what we actually do is our material is all over the place. The material is in the place that it's most relevant for it to be and most discoverable by the kind of audience that we're trying to get to. So we have not built an Edinburgh University Open Education Resources repository. We decided not to spend our money on that. We spend our money on actually getting resources made and released. So we spend our money on faculty development, staff development, training courses for staff, and publicizing it, and tracking the material to see how it does and where it goes. So the argument for the common good, as I say, it's about enriching the university and the sector. And I think as well as I'm talking about Edinburgh University releasing material, part of the reason why this argument works is when I ask colleagues whether they use material from anyone else in their teaching, they all look a bit shifty and admit that they do. So they often go out onto the internet and take images or pieces from other places. And I say, do you know what license that was released under? And a lot of them realize at that point that they didn't check that and that it probably wasn't actually something they had permission to use. And I said, well, that's okay. But the sector would be better off if everyone was making more material available under open licenses. So the more that material that I make open and the more material you make open, the more we can reuse each other's stuff. So although I might take a privileged position and release a lot of my stuff, what I would really like in the institution is to internationalize my curriculum, to liberate my curriculum and have a lot more different cultural examples in the teaching for the Scottish students that I have on campus. So the more any or all of you could release material under licenses that would allow my colleagues to reuse them, the better. So we're enabling staff to find and use high-quality teaching materials developed within the university. It's an enormous place, and we don't pay any attention to each other most of the time. So we actually have a lot of resources we don't even know about. And also beyond the university, to bring open educational resources into our day-to-day teaching. We want to showcase Edinburgh at its best, and that's where a lot of our MOOC stuff comes in, but we make it available as open courseware as well as on the MOOC platforms. And this is partly to enable the discovery, but partly to enhance the university's reputation. So why are we investing in this? It's high profile for us, it has our brand on it, it gets the message about our research out, and it makes the MOOCs make Edinburgh University look not like a boring old ancient university, but like a modern young institution that invests in digital. And our treasures, we digitize and curate and share collections of material. And actually that activity with the collections is what has led very much to our engagement with Wikipedia and Wikimedia that Daniel mentioned. We have a Wikimedian in residence at the university who works with us to figure out what from the university's collections and research and knowledge can be openly shared on Wikipedia, which is the largest open educational resource in the world. So as well as making material available, we also have students doing projects in the curriculum where they are adding and writing to improve the quality of the content that is in Wikipedia, but also Wikidata and Wikisource. So you may or may not be aware of all of the many wiki projects. But the nice thing about working with Wikimedia and Wikipedia is that again, we didn't want to create our own open educational resources repository because it didn't seem like that would be open. Putting things onto Wikipedia, there's a whole investment in that infrastructure worldwide. I'm sure you're aware that Wikipedia is available in lots of different languages, but the coverage in most of the languages is not anywhere near what it is in the English language. So getting people to reuse and share and translate content is a big part of what we're doing in the university. As well as having a vision, we do have an open educational resources policy at the institution. It is approved by Learning and Teaching Committee, which is part of Senate. It encourages staff and helps them, and it's informative and permissive. This is not a policy that says that everybody must. It says that anyone who wants to can. And that was important because lots of colleagues were saying to me, are you sure I'm allowed to release this material under this license? Does the university give me permission to release this under this license? And the policy says yes, the university does give you permission, if you want to release the material under this license. So we have a vision, we have an institutional policy, and to support that we have a service. So we have an OER service which gives advice, runs workshops, does faculty development training, provides the platforms and helps people to load things up onto the platforms. Encouragement and incentives, obviously, and we give technical solutions for using the licenses and making things available in open formats, and we report and track on the use of the material. But just to return to encouragements and incentives, because several people have mentioned it already this week, we don't give a direct incentive, like we don't pay anybody, any academic colleagues, any extra to do it. They don't get anything extra for making MOOCs. They don't get anything extra for doing OER. But what we do is we give more help to colleagues who, the more open they want to make their material, the more help they get from this service. So we make it as easy as possible for the people who want to make stuff open to make it open. And for people who aren't interested in making it open and want to keep it closed, we kind of say, well, you know, off you go. But the help from the technical teams, the digital teams, is all for people who want to make their stuff open, want them to choose. So open should be a choice, and we would like that to be the choice that people make. So just to return to a slide about Wikipedia, this, for me, I've been doing MOOCs for 5 or 6 years now. They're lovely, but I don't think they're the most exciting thing you can be doing in open educational resources. I actually think Wikimedia is the most exciting thing you can be doing. I'm sure you all have ideas about how you feel about Wikipedia and Wikimedia. Some people will like it, some people don't. I think it's worth having a good look at and thinking about how the materials that we produce can be used on those platforms, and even to get your stuff onto those platforms, it has to be clearly openly licensed. But it doesn't take all that long. And yesterday I took a picture of the Parmesan cheese at lunch, and I loaded it up into Wikipedia as an image that I took and applied a Creative Commons license to it, and then added it to the Wikipedia page, which is about Parmesan cheese. So I've created an OER that can be reused by anyone who wants to from a picture that I took of a piece of cheese. It's that simple. But what we're doing at the University of Edinburgh is thinking a lot about what we have in our collections and what knowledge we have and adding it in to Wikipedia and Wikimedia. And I'm happy to talk or answer questions about having a Wikimedian in residence or engaging with Wikipedia more generally, if that's of interest. Thank you very much. This is my contact details. Also, my colleague Lorna, also available to speak at gigs like this anytime you would like to invite us. Thank you very much.